Today's topic is the Christianization of South Korea, and this is really a good topic for your good candidate for your final exam, right? Because there's got to be many factors, right, that account for the success of Christianity in Korea. Okay, so to give you a brief overview, or should we say, to remind you as to what happened with the Christianization of Korea, from what we have talked about in the past, what is the sort of what are some of the numbers you know as far as Christianity in Korea is concerned? So if you want to do a little breakdown, the Protestant Christianity, second most popular religion, right? Third most popular religion is Catholicism, right? Now, what is the population of Korea, South Korea? It's roughly 50 million now. It's rather easy to remember, right? 50 million. And out of this, what is the number of Protestant Christians in Korea? Roughly 14 million. So that's about 30% of the total population. And why is this significant? I think I mentioned this before, right? That in all of Asia, the only country that has a significant proportion of Christians in their population is the Philippines, where over 90% of the population is Catholic. But other than that, again, when it comes to proportion of the population, only a very small proportion of the population in any Asian country has converted to Christianity. And I think when it comes to making this kind of comparison, I think Japan is a good example, where about only 500,000 Japanese are Christian, representing less than 1% of the total population. So it's always sort of an interesting thing to ask. So what are the factors that made Christianity a second and third largest religion in terms of membership? Now, is it only me who is excited about this question? Aren't you guys excited? I mean, intellectually speaking, when I told you these facts, how in other parts of Asia you just have small number of Christians. But don't think that missionary efforts in other parts of Asia were any different. Okay? Because missionaries, wherever they go, they have a method. And that is to first approach the natives by throwing carrots. They build schools, they build hospitals, they provide medical care. So this method was done in practically every corner of the Asian continent. It's only South Korea that responded warmly. Okay? So there must be cultural, political, social factors that made Koreans very receptive to Christianity. Okay? So if you're not intellectually excited about this, please, this is your time. This is your moment. Be excited. Okay? Because it is exciting. Right? So, if you work yourself up to, to be intellectually attracted to this issue, because if you don't, you're gonna fall asleep. So there she is, yawning, and so stop that, and then just Look at this, zoom in onto this topic. So, again, the question is, what are the factors that made Christianity such an attractive religion for Koreans? So keep that in mind. So there are many, many factors. So we're going to talk about those, and I'll ask you this on the final exam. See? Am I not a nice guy here about, just giving you what's going to be on the final exam? This will be on the final exam. That much I'll tell you clearly, and I even promise you, so that I get your attention to this issue. Okay? So, can anybody take a guess as to what those factors are? Before I actually get to the answer, I want to hear what you think about this issue, about this question. Okay, so Brian's argument is that church has advanced messages that were similar to those of shamanism, because you've heard earful from me, right? That Koreans have this very pro-shamanistic worldview, and Buddhism has done the same. Has done this, right? Buddhism has embraced shamanistic practices and even beliefs in popularizing its religion, and same thing was done with Christianity. Okay, so we're gonna get to the details a little bit later. So the parallel that you find between Christianity and shamanism is one, very possible. What else?
If I can add.
No, you had your chance. We move on. Just kidding. Go ahead.
It's interesting that when the early church started in Korea, they were very heavily persecuting shamans and shamanism. But it's interesting that their message is practically identical in some of their beliefs. So I find that personally interesting.
Oh, well, he finds this interesting. What about you guys? What is it about Christianity that you find interesting? Let me know. By the end of today's class, I want everyone to tell me something about Christianity in Korea that you find interesting. Yes?
But just in response to that, like, if shamanism affected Christianity being a big thing, but there's still very different, like the
Well, they were persecuting this ancestral beliefs, and it seems like a contradictory, but it's not. Yeah, well, I'm saying that's why I find it interesting.
See, what he's trying to say is this. Although Christianity is shamanized to a certain extent, this shamanized Christianity looks down on. And it sort of tries to put down, shamanism as a superstition, when Christianity arrived in Korea, there was no existing religion that opposed this new religion. So, in regard to this, I'd like to ask you to think about this. Remember last week I showed you how in Africa, what were the two most popular religions? Islam and Christianity. So how was it that this huge continent is so into Christianity and Islam? Can you find any common denominator between the continent of Africa and South Korea? No. Yes, it is a common fact, but in regard to this question, yes.
I don't know about the Christianity bit, which is probably more to that, but the Muslim thing in Africa, I think there was a lot of people from Muslim countries, like,
migrated.
To, like my family.
Okay.
From like four 4 generations ago, much Muslims from like India, Pakistan border. This big moved to like especially East African countries, and then I think that's why there's also quite a big Muslim.
Okay, migration. Her point is. Anyone else? See, you're not only learning about Christianity in Korea, but something worldly, you know, because in all of Africa, when Christian missionaries went, or when Islam was introduced, did these religions face any opposition? Yes or no? From a world religion. See, why is it that there is no Christianity in India? Why is there no Christianity in the Middle East? Why is there no Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism in Israel? Why? Because the existing religion in those societies are so strong that a new religion simply cannot penetrate. Okay? So Christianity failed to penetrate Japan because Japan had Shinto, very strong religion at the time of the introduction of Christianity. It had Buddhism. It had Confucianism. China, like Ilinia said, same thing. It had a very strong tradition of Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism. So when Chinese were attached to these religions, they simply did not have any room for a new religion. But in contrast, if you look at Africa or South America, the native people there had shamanism. Okay, these tribes had local folk religions. Folk religions are different from world religions because they typically do not have organized priesthood. There is no real organization of any religion. It's just a person-based, person who performs healing, someone who exorcises evil spirits from people who are sick. So, and there's no doctrines to speak of, right? So these small-scale, one-person-based religions simply could not put up any opposition or put up a fight against this very well-organized, very well-funded activities of the missionaries. Okay? So if you look at all the countries where Christianity prospered, there was no strong existing organized religion. Okay? So that is true for the Philippines, South Korea, or should we say all of Korea, Latin America, Central America, North America, right? And also Africa. So this is something that I actually identify this as being the most important reason why Korea has such a strong presence of Christianity today. And the paper that I wrote is the first one to actually identify this as a very good factor. Okay? So that's two. One is the parallel between shamanism and Christianity. Second one is the lack of strong organized religion in Korea at the time of the introduction of Christianity. That's two. What else? Are things getting more interesting now for you? The whole Christianity thing. See, there's more to the cross than Christianity in Korea. What else? With your participation and with my sort of a good spirit, who knows? We could end the class a little early today. 1884 is when Protestant Christianity was introduced to Korea, and the introduction of Catholicism was exactly 100 years earlier, in 1784. Okay, so because when we talk about Christianization of South Korea, I think we need to, I mean, for the sake of convenience, we could sort of stick with the Protestant Christianity. Now, when Protestant Christianity was introduced to Korea in 1884, the time, the political, geopolitical climate of the region at the time was that, you know how Korea was like a hermit kingdom back then, right? It just had a very limited contact with China. But with the rest of the world, it did not have any relationship. It did not have any trade pact, or it just did not have any sort of interaction with the rest of the neighboring countries, or should we say, the countries in the region, right? Now, with many countries in the neighboring countries opening up, you see, the China had opened itself up to the Western influences. Japan, same thing, and exactly why, maybe I cannot really say, but things started to really change where Japan wanted to now have more influences on Korea. Now, although Korea had limited relationship with China, it was a tributary state to China, meaning it gave China sort of gifts on an annual basis, so that China does not attack or invade Korea. So it had a sort of a amicable relationship, but it came with a price where Korea had to pay tribute to China, okay, for being a good, big brother, right? Sort of big neighbor. Now, to this relationship, Japan wanted to have more influences on Korea, okay? And at the same time, Russia also wanted to have more say in the region, and the peninsula, the Korea became a sort of a vital part in doing that, okay? So by the late 1800s, Korea had these three powerful neighbors: China, Russia, and Japan, all interested in having more influences over Korea. Okay, the court, the king and the officials, emperor at the time, all felt very nervous. Okay, because it was something that was felt by the elite and also the masses. So when they were feeling this sort of a pinch, this heat, that's when the missionaries arrived. Okay, of all places, the United States. So although Korea remained a hermit kingdom for a long time, it did not take long for the Joseon court to realize that these missionaries came from a very, very modernized, economically powerful, and militarily powerful United States. So getting that information was not difficult, because much more information about the USA was known in China, and Korea was able to learn that these missionaries, because the early missionaries, most of them, not most, but vast majority of them came from the United States. So they knew that courting the favor of the United States may save Korea. Okay? So in order to do that, the court realized how they needed to treat the missionaries in a very hospitable manner. Okay? So, although many sort of legal frameworks were against the new religion, the society as a whole and the Joseon court sort of looked the other way when it came to the missionaries doing their thing, that is to doing their missionary works. So right from the beginning, although propagating about a new religion was against the law, the missionaries' activities were passively allowed. Okay, there was no, I mean, the missionaries were practically allowed to do whatever they wanted to do. Okay, so this very complex geopolitical climate in which Korea was at the center of these regional powers vying for control of Korea made Korea nervous, and that nervousness allowed the court to allow the missionaries to do their thing and to view Christianity in a positive light. Okay, so that's sort of a political factor that we could think about. Okay, so that's third factor that we could that we talked about, right? What else is there? Since I'm sort of talking at length about each of these factors, I think we should go back to this first one. Parallels that are found between shamanism and Christianity, right? And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but you see, in Korean Christianity, many churches preach that if you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, you not only are saved, you not only get salvation, but also you're blessed with health and long life, and also prosperity. Okay, so the pastor who's most famous for this is Pastor Jo Yong-gi at the Full Gospel Church. And it is called Threefold Blessings of Jesus Christ. So, yes, some evangelical churches in the USA do make the same claim, but what this Pastor Joe has become famous for, that if you accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, you get these three blessings. One, spiritual, salvation. The other two, material, okay, materialistic. Longevity and wealth, right? Now, the latter two, emphasizing that you get these two types of material rewards, that is, these are very similar to what shamanistically inclined Koreans pray for, right? When people who are steeped in shamanism pray, what do they pray for? Typically, health and wealth, right? So these are the central sort of themes, should we say themes, or the things that Koreans pray for in shamanism. And the same thing is being done by Korean Christians because, yes, it is true that Korean pastors, if you go to a Korean church on a typical day and you listen to the pastor's sermons, every so often, you know, the pastors do say, right? I mean, the message could be about something in the Bible, but you know how sermon typically is about the message in the Bible, and they say things about current situation and make connections, right? How biblical messages are pertinent and relevant to today's life. in the Korean context, when they make this connection, there's not always, but often, things about how the belief in Christianity will result in the person getting what he or she wants. And that is typically something very material. Okay? So that's the kind of a parallel that we're talking about. Okay? Okay? Any comments up to this point?
You talked about the connection between shamanism and Christianity, but also there's a connection between Confucianism and Christianity, right? Like the reverence to the elderly is very similar in both beliefs, and also the order, how the woman should always follow what her husband says, how the son should always do as his father says. Like, it's very similar in both beliefs.
Very good. When we talk about the kind of a parallel that you find between Christianity and traditional religions of Korea, we could also talk about the similarity between the Christian doctrines and Confucian values, right? So especially in regard to parents, right? So filial piety is one of the key values of Confucianism, and Christianity has made this very point, that believing in Christianity does not mean that you have to give up on your belief in Confucian values, because as evidenced by its inclusion in the Ten Commandments, honoring your father, which is equivalent to filial piety, at least in the way it was preached. Filial piety is something that Christians also value, right? So this connection between Confucianism and Christianity was also made. Okay, and at least in the beginning, the sort of man's dominance over women was also justified, or was advanced as having the same line of thought in Christianity. Okay, so when it comes to this parallel between Christianity and Korean traditional religions, the arguments were made for both shamanism and Confucianism. Okay? Good point. Anyone else?
I just want to raise a question then, because certain types of Christianity are more popular in Korea than others, like Protestantism versus Catholicism. The element of this shamanistic thing seems to attract more people than the dominant Confucian beliefs. Of course, it's expected that everyone would have filial piety, and the Catholic Church doesn't really preach this prosperity message. The name it and claim it doctrines are not really prevalent in their teaching. So, is that one of the reasons why they're less popular among the Korean people?
He's raising a question as to why. I mean, basically, why is Catholicism less popular than Protestant Christianity? Is it because Protestant Christianity has done something differently, right? And that difference is definitely is this. Protestant Christianity was more attuned to shamanistic sort of inclinations. Because if you look at some of the evangelical churches in Korea, or even non-Pentecostal churches, the faith healing, right? See, faith healing is, as many Korean scholars would like to say, faith healing is like healing practices of shamanism, right? I mean, they do little things differently, but ultimately they try to exorcise evil spirits that are causing this sickness in the person. If I'm sort of misleading, please let me know. I'm sort of looking at you too because you're, from what I know, born again Christians, right? So when a Korean scholar says that Korean sort of a shamanistic exorcism in the hope of healing a person is similar to Christian/Pentecostal practice of faith healing, is that going too far? So, see, Protestant Christianity has done that. This faith healing is popular, and praying for material wishes much more pronounced. So, if you wanna assess which religion is closer to shamanism, definitely it's Protestantism. That is probably the reason why Protestant Christianity is more popular. Okay? Yes.
I think we can also add the factor that while Protestants were building hospitals and schools for the local population, what the Catholics did were they were just building their churches and cathedrals. So I don't think that was very welcomed by the Koreans as much as hospitals and education.
Okay. It is true that at least in the beginning, Protestant Christianity was more relevant to Korean lives than the Catholic Church. Because at least in the beginning, again, I'm talking about the beginning of the Protestant Church. The Protestant Church, as soon as it was introduced in 1884, it built more schools, it built more hospitals, and it actively participated in the liberation movement. Okay? So it was a religion that was more relevant to the lives of Korean people. Okay? And that tradition lived on throughout the Japanese colonial period. And even after the war, the lot of humanitarian aids were channeled through church agencies. Okay, and also since the founding of the First Republic in 1948, Christian became the first president of Korea, and he hired many Christians in prominent positions. So Christianity, even back then, back in the 1945 and not 45, but back in the 1948, the number of Christians was less than 1 million. Okay, a small proportion, and yet some of the leading positions were held by Christians, and Christianity at the time, Protestant Christianity, was sort of a gateway to modernity and success. Okay? So during the critical period of religious freedom, Protestant Christianity was the religion to be. Okay? It was something that you could brag about. I go to this church, and I'm a member there, and that's where you go to this place to. So let's just call it was a hip thing to be a member of a church back then. Okay? But not necessarily for the Catholic Church. So I think, this question just has prompted me to actually study this for a paper. Okay, what made Protestant Christianity more attractive to Koreans? Okay, I don't think there has been too many published papers that focus on this issue. So I'll work on that, and you could look forward to reading it sometime in the future. Okay? So, anything else? Yeah? No, 1 second.
No. What about documentary?
Oh, documentary. Sure. You know, there's this, it's a side note, this student from the USA, she is making a documentary about this educational hell in Korea. And I've been interviewed several times. So you could look forward to another documentary which features moi.
When is that coming out?
She said she's near completion and she wanted to do one more interview, but I've been so busy. And I've been saying like, hey, where's my appearance fee? Just kidding. But I look forward to that film because she interviews many surviving family members of those who committed suicide. And, you know, she just tries to examine why is, you know, life as a student in Korea so difficult? Why is it so hard? Okay? So I gave her, you know, many tips as to why this is happening. Right? Yeah. 1 second, please.
Between education and how it got, how Christianity got big in South Korea, also, right? Because, like you said, a lot of the major universities here they're Christian-based, like Yonsei and Ewha.
The role of education should also be considered. A lot of Protestant sort of operated, you know, schools began, you know, from the late 1980s, and the tradition of getting involved in education is much more pronounced among Protestant organizations than the Catholic ones, right? There are no. That's right. From what I know, only a handful. Okay, that is not theological sort of colleges, right? So I think I could think of 서강, 성심. Do you know of any other Catholic universities? So I think it's safe to say handful. Whereas Protestant operated universities, dozens. Okay, and if you go down to the secondary level education, high school and junior high, just many more Protestant schools than Catholic schools. Yes.
I know one strategy that Protestant churches are using is because of the English boom in Korea. They're offering teaching English, which the price tends to be a lot lower than these normal institutes, and they are using Bible stories to teach English to the students. I don't know if it's a strategy, but that's one of the ways that they are making converts and increasing the popularity of Protestantism.
Are they making money off that?
They are. In some cases, I think the school part of the church is more lucrative than the church functions. But I do know that many Protestant churches are offering these kind of services in the communities.
So what are the factors that we talked about as for the rise of Christianity in Korea? What are the factors we talked about? Yeah. Okay, Christianity's parallel with shamanism. Okay, so the lack of opposition from the existing traditional religions. Okay? What else? Faster you respond, the sooner we could wrap this up. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Education.
Yeah.
Parallel with Confucianism, right? And is that all we talked about? Yes. political circumstances, right? And okay, so I think education was already mentioned, but in addition to education, medical service and other welfare services provided by the church. Church founded the first school for the blind, a school for the deaf, and also medical care. Right? They provided vaccination to some of the life-threatening diseases, and for any illness one had, if you went to a clinic set up by the missionary, it was not free, offered for free outright, but if you said, I don't have any money, then the service was still offered. Okay, so, and of course, so series of these, so these philanthropic activities of the missionaries did make a lot of Koreans become open to this new religion. Okay, so the last one I want to talk about. So whatever we don't get to talk about, look at the uploaded lecture notes, and whatever you find there is also something relevant to this discussion. This last one is this: Korea urbanized and industrialized very rapidly since the early 1960s. So this industrialization / urbanization has meant massive migration of Koreans from rural areas to urban areas. So people were dislocated, they were uprooted. See, in the countryside, in their place of birth, what was the lifestyle like? They had close relationship with everyone in the village, right? They knew one another on a very close-knit basis, okay? But now they were all in this very impersonal, very alienating urban center, very competitive, very anxious. The lifestyle of the city was one of anxiety, nervousness, and cutthroat competition. So, having been removed from this very personalized, close-knit relationship to this very impersonal, alienating circumstances, these people were longing for sense of identity, longing for sense of belonging. And where did they find this? At a church. Because church offered, a place, a refuge where people could just go to and share their sense of anxiety. It was a place where they found comfort. They found fellowship. Okay. Also the sense of, again, identity, sense of belonging, all of these things that were lacking in this new lifestyle that they were subjected to in this era or age of rapid modernization, urbanization, and industrialization. Okay? Because other religions, do they offer regular contact, regular congregation, regular meeting, regular activities? No. Take an example of Buddhism. There's no regular Sunday service like the church, right? Now, of course, a lot of Buddhist temples want to regularize things. They want people to come to their temple on a regular basis, like Sunday. That way, more people come and they make contributions But at least until the 1980s, Buddhist temples did not offer any of the regular contact that people wanted so badly, right? But church, again, in addition to Sunday worship service, churches have so many varieties of activities, right? Bible study, right? And then there's a cell group, right? The cell group thing was something that was popularized by the Yeouido Full Gospel Church, but it became very popular where many churches adopted the same sort of a scheme to keep people attached, to sort of have the people have this greater sense of belonging, right? Very close knit. So church acted like a cocoon. It acted like a sort of a village community. Okay. Again, it offered regular activities, regular assembly. You know, people went to like the church every Sunday, and they were able to meet with people with similar interests, right? And so it offered fellowship, a sense of comfort, and sense of identity, and so on, right? So that is the one final thing that we could add as a factor for the rise of Christianity in Korea. So, and again, the lecture note that I will upload will have all of these factors, and see which factor you think is the most important factor. Okay, I'll probably ask you that in the final exam too. You list all these factors, you provide details, okay? You can't not just list things, but provide details of all of these factors. And as a final thing, what you think is the most important factor out of all these factors. See, today, because I'm a nice guy and I'm feeling good, I gave away a full essay question on the final exam. He just can't stop laughing because he's so happy. Grinning, just full of grins. So, any questions or comments about this very topic of Christianization of South Korea? Are you now finally intellectually attracted, interested in this topic or not? If there's anybody who says no, this will not be on the final exam. Is there anybody who's not interested in this topic intellectually? Hands up. I totally trust you because I'm a nice guy. I find you to be very trustworthy. Okay? Yes?
I'm just wondering, how much parkland was there?
How much?
Like, how many parks, like parkland?
Parkland.
Yeah, for, like, citizens to relax.
Oh, like parks. Very few. Even today, I think there are not too many parks where people could go to, right?
So what you mentioned about the church, I was thinking, like, you could replace the church with a park.
Maybe now, right? I think the greatest threat to church membership today is that with increasing leisure time, people like to go like on a weekend trip outside of the place of their abode, right? So instead of going to church, they'd rather go like to the countryside to enjoy their leisure time. Okay? So the same thing that happened in North America and Europe. People are affiliated with a church, but they don't necessarily go to their church on a weekly basis. But again, at least up to this point, when it comes to church attendance, Koreans are very, very active. They're avid churchgoers. Okay? But who knows? In the next decade or so, with, again, increased leisure time and with increased emphasis on leisure time, people may opt to just simply go on a weekend trip rather than stay home and, just to go to a church on Sunday. Okay? I think there's a lot of Christians would say, if somebody in the family says, oh, let's go to this, and go to do that for the weekend, I think many Christians would say, no, we got to go to church on Sunday, right? But this kind of people, I think the number will sort of decline over the years. That's my guess. Anyone else? To make this really, really interesting, intellectually stimulating, I'll wait for 3 questions. And once I answer those questions, okay, just make questions. Wow, look at this. I've never seen 2 hands being raised at the same time. Yes. No, 1 second.
I thought that in Korea that Christianity is very institution oriented. Like people are really devoted to going to the church on every Sunday, compared to other like North America or European society. So other than lack of leisure time, like what could be other factors to make Korean people more devoted on just going to a church and having this religion centered on the church, like not like the individual belief in, or not just a relation between the God and the individual.
I think that's a very good question. Why is it that even with this increasing emphasis on the leisure time, people still love to go to church in Korea? And I think that's because, culturally speaking, Koreans are very they place a lot of emphasis on personal relationship. So, see, going to a church, I think in the West, I think a lot of people would just go to church and just do their thing, meaning participating in the religious activity, and just come home. I think again, not every person in the United States or Canada does this, but you'll find a lot of them just going to church for their individual sort of a spiritual needs only. But in Korea, in addition to this spiritual needs, there's always this sort of a thing about how you want to go there to meet people, make connections, and establish this personal network of the networking. So for Korean Christians, this networking is as important as participating in a religious activity for meeting one's spiritual needs. Is that a plausible answer? That's question number 1. Question number 2. Just 1 second.
How old are you? How old are you? You just want questions, right?
The question, okay, I have to qualify this. The questions have to be relevant to today's topic. Okay, so that's irrelevant, and I won't answer that. Okay? It's got to be a question. Okay, comment. Go ahead. Turn it on. Sorry. Turn it off.
In my small city, I had a lot of Korean friends, and maybe I'd want to meet some of them on Sunday, but then they say that they can't because they have to go to church.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
So they, yeah.
I think that's quite. Well, let me ask you: is that more Korean?
People also go for just like the fellowship aspect, just to like be with their friends, because a lot of the church people in my church are, well, I'm not very close to a lot of people in my church, but my mother is, so she goes a lot to see her friends as well, because afterwards they have like little fellowship, like just to talk and just catch up on the week or anything like that. So that's also a reason why people would go to church, because a lot of their friends are at church already. So
let's just say that the fellowship aspect is more important for Koreans. Okay. How much more important? We'll not answer that. Two more questions. Wasn't that was first? His question was how old I am, so that doesn't count. So number two. You see how difficult it is to raise questions? It is.
Okay, so my question is a bit off the record. Like from personal experience, I see, like I'm approached so many times here in Korea by missionaries who try like to give me some, I don't know, pamphlets or something like that. And that never happens to me like in the West. Like it never happened to me in Bulgaria or like when I go and travel. So I was wondering, are those like missionaries, is it common for the Protestant church to have such an active like spreading of their beliefs, or is it more like a cult thing, like some, I don't know, sect? Like, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think you definitely see more people preaching on the street in Korea, right? Well, it's one of the teachings of many denominations. So, which cult or denomination is best known for street preaching? Jehovah's Witness, right? It's their thing. They have to preach. Is it once a day or once a week? It's in their sort of a doctrine, right? It's one of the key teachings of Jehovah's Witness. Now, we have some denominations in Korea that require the church members to do preaching, okay? Like once a week. So that's why you find them on the subways, on the streets, knocking on the door. I mean, I have to confess, when I'm like in the subway and I see this, aging woman like making almost nonsensical, like, you believe in Jesus Christ and, you'll go to heaven. It definitely does not send a positive message, right? But they still do it nonetheless because they just think that as long as I fulfill this requirement, I've done my job, right? So they're not thinking about effective preaching, but just this sense of fulfilling the sort of the requirement. Okay. So good question. The last one. Who has the honor of raising the last question of the day? Well, there you go. I was expecting something from him.
The turnoff with Christianity here in Korea kind of is that a lot of the like Full Gospel Church in Yeouido and like some of those other churches that have like over like 1 million followers or some like yeah, exactly, and then they have those nice buildings and like they have a lot of those programs going on and like a lot of incomes coming in, obviously. Like my question is, how do churches, like, because I'm sure like everyday Koreans that aren't Protestant, like I'm sure they probably know about that, like they're against that, and like they like you said, these pastors that like they don't have to pay taxes, like income taxes, and like my question is how does the Protestant church kind of survive like this kind of stuff like here in Korea, because like, in the West like it obviously that's still there, but like it's not as big as here in Korea, I think.
I've been by the Yeouido church, but I think these big churches in Korea, like these kind of glorified buildings, it's a way of also propagating their message of prosperity. Look at our building. Look at the cars that our people are driving. They're not small. They're luxury edition cars, and our suits are nice. It's about the image, and if they can if they have a very old building that's from the 1800s. People don't really are not. You're preaching this message, but it doesn't match what you're talking about. So it's one way that they can show the goods. Well,
I mean, a lot of things that we could say about religious life in Korea that go against the core teachings of Buddhism and Christianity, right? So I think what Brian just said, we could call it sort of a conspicuous materialism of the church. Bigger the church building you have, the idea that you advance is like, we are this big because we're somehow better than others, right? So this emphasis on the size of the congregation and the building is a sign of God's blessing, right? So anyway, I think going back to his question, I think when it comes to some of the practices of the Protestant church, definitely those who don't go to church, they do single out the Protestant church as doing sort of things that are not so society friendly. Okay, so whenever there's a scandal, be it financial or sex involving church members or pastors, the kind of the messages that people leave behind, it's just really terrible. There's so much hatred that you sort of sense in those messages, so now there are many concerned pastors and Christians who call on other pastors and Christians to reflect on how they have carried this religion, sort of giving sort of bad impressions to non-Christians, and their sort of exclusive stands on how, because I think many non-Christians are turned off by some of the strong messages of some of the Christians, who say that their religion is the only truth, right? The religion that makes this claim the strongest is Protestants, right? At least the Catholic Church does not make that claim. It's just, there are many different ways to, or path to truth, and that includes, other sort of competing religions. But the Protestant Church in Korea, very rigid when it comes to making claims about their exclusive path to the truth. So let's hope that that there's more tolerance toward differences, even in faith. Okay. All right. So thanks for having maintained this very intellectually keen attention on this topic of Christianity in Korea.